As marketers, we don't have many superpowers when it comes to business. We can build a sales funnel, for example, that does all the work for the sales team, perhaps through SEO or some other mechanism to where you've got very low customer acquisition costs and you're bringing in tons of leads all the time. I think that's probably one superpower when you think about contributing to a business's top line. Another superpower, and it's a really important one for companies really of all sizes, is figuring out a way to get to a recurring revenue model. And whether that means layering, recurring revenue on top of just one area of your business, being able to tap into the predictable nature of revenue that comes from a recurring revenue model is invaluable. As we enter, what is pretty uncertain economic time, and we've been in kind of a world of uncertainty when it comes to the economy for the last few months, 18 months, 24 months or so. But the outlook from all the surveys that we're doing for clients, for all the conversations that I'm having with business leaders, is that things are really shaky. We're all standing on pretty uncertain floor right now, and the floor is constantly moving. And so, being able to have a relationship with your customer to where they've signed on to recurring revenue, I think is invaluable. To know that at least you can weather the storm going forward. The question, of course, then becomes: can you hang on to your customers through an economic downturn? But that's an easier conversation to have in terms of being able to bring value to a customer that's already in your ecosystem than it is to acquire a new one. Which is really one of the main reasons why a company should shift whatever aspect of their business they can to a recurring revenue model, is that customer loyalty and that predictability of revenue. We've seen, since the start of the pandemic, companies at the IPO level, at the public company level, make some really strange decisions in hindsight. But also, if you track back to some of our earlier videos and conversations, and even some of the stuff that I recorded with James Phillip, corporate leaders are making interesting decisions around demand planning and inventory and things. I think one big culprit is probably Peloton, in that it was very clear that the stimulus into the economy and all the money being pumped in was causing, all the moratoriums on rent, for example, and all the student loan moratoriums as well, that was contributing to an inflated level of demand in the economy. And many companies, I think, were operating under the assumption that, okay, well, look at us at this new level of demand. This must be where we are forever. I think Peloton did that with hiring something like, I think they doubled their workforce, if I remember the stat correctly, in a very short space of time during the pandemic. They also bought up a ton of inventory that's just sitting out there, and it's a problem now on their balance sheet, because as demand has come down, the people that wanted to buy a bike or a treadmill or whatever Peloton product they have bought it. And now, the idea of bringing on new customers gets very, very expensive over time. They're pretty clever in that they have a recurring revenue stream from the subscription services. And so that's probably the part of the business, if you're looking at valuations, that gets valued higher. But it's so difficult without a predictable revenue stream to make planning decisions around how you're going to operate your business through uncertain times, for one, but even in good times, to know that if you're always on this kind of mouse wheel of trying to find new customers and make sure that transaction is profitable, if you're running paid ads to try and make sure that you've got a margin and you're always operating within the margin to pay for new customers, it's a really difficult thing. The businesses that run like that typically have a difficult time when you see downturns or when you see the consumer pull back, because you're competing for a portion of the wallet that is always disposable. When you get to the place where you've got a recurring revenue relationship with a customer, your focus then turns as a business owner, as a marketer, as somebody who's working in operations, away from how do we find a new customer, how do we find a new customer, how do we bring on a new customer to our service, to how do we look after our customers that we already have in the best way possible? How do we add more value? How do we add more value? And in that sense, where recurring revenue streams or recurring revenue models can seem like, only a big company with great resources can do that, I'll make the case that really any business can tap into the power of a recurring revenue stream or a recurring revenue model, either on a monthly or an annual basis, just by looking at the different products that you currently sell and seeing, okay, where is there stickiness with the customer? Where can we remove choice? Where can we take something off the table to where the customer doesn't have to think anymore? There's a popular marketing saying, I think it's a Scott Galloway saying, that the customers don't want more choice. They just want more certainty in the choices that they're making. And by looking at the products that you're selling to your customer base and trying to identify the ones to where you can remove choice and say, okay, don't think about this anymore. Maybe, for example, let's say you run a small coffee shop, and you've got a base of return clients that come in every morning, and they get a coffee and they get a bagel or they get a pastry. Can you say, okay, well, let's continue to add value with the coffee side because it's probably a little bit higher margin, but maybe the pastries, for example, can we take that line item off the table for a customer and say, for $9.99 a month, whatever ends up being a profitable level, and that's a calculus that we can help businesses do when we do recurring revenue model consulting. Figure out the calculus to where, okay, a customer is going to be willing to spend $9.99, $14.99 a month for unlimited access to pastries, and take that decision off the table. You then, as a business owner, get the predictability of knowing that you're going to get $15 a month from your customer on top of whatever coffee sales you're going to get. And then you can make decisions around inventory, around marketing, around whatever decisions that you need to make as a business owner, knowing that you've got predictability in one level of your revenue. Customers, I think, are looking, in my experience, for businesses to have a recurring revenue relationship with. If you think about your own purchasing decisions, it gets a little bit taxing. It gets annoying to have to go around and okay, every time you need something, I've got to think about where to go and get it. I'm that way with lunch some days, to where it's like you scroll through DoorDash or whatever, and because there's so many options, you just give up and you say, okay, I'm just going to end up making a sandwich at home because there's too many options. The faster that your business or your company can get to a place where you're removing choice from the customer and saying, okay, we'll provide this value to you, have that recurring revenue relationship with us, I think you're establishing a win, of course, for your own operations, but a win for the customer as well. And so we're facing pretty unprecedented times at the macroeconomic level. And I think companies, regardless of what size they are, really should start thinking about their own businesses, the products and services that they sell, and really ask themselves, which of these lends itself to a recurring revenue relationship with a customer? Which of these can we remove choice from the customer because we know that it's an annoying thing to have to choose, for example, at a transactional level? And the faster the businesses can get to recurring revenue, the better it is. I think the very last thing I'll say too is that if you're in a business, and a lot of business owners are, you start a business with the intention of, okay, doing well for a certain period of time, but maybe selling at some point in the future. From conversations that I've been lucky to have been a part of, and things that private equity firms and firms that make investments in companies or buyouts value revenue when it's recurring at a higher multiple than the transactional kind, because they know that your customer acquisition costs are lower, and you're able to generate more revenue per customer than you would if you had a transactional business. And if you're in the business of selling your business on in the future, establishing some level of recurring revenue at some level of your products and services is a good idea for bumping your multiple too. So there are many benefits to a recurring revenue model. Many people think that it's only for big companies or companies that have resources to spare, but I really do believe that any company can establish a recurring revenue model with their customers, as long as they've got some certain things in place. You've got to have some value added items. You've got to have a good enough brand to where they trust you and they're willing to give you that, 9, 4, 15, whatever it is, dollars a month for a certain thing. So definitely something to consider if you run a business in this economy. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're in a business that currently operates with a recurring revenue model, are you seeing the things that I'm saying in terms of value added for yourself, value added for the customer? And if you're not in a business with a recurring revenue stream, or if you're looking to get into one, I'd love to know kind of what your frictions are. Why haven't you moved to that already? Are there benefits that you're seeing in yet keeping things transactional? I'm always eager to learn. So until the next video.